So, Marvel Comics just rebooted Spider-Man, and fans are losing their minds. Seriously, if you look out on social media, fans are gassing this book up big time. But it occurred to me that if you were not a big comic book reader and you flipped through this book, you might be confused. In fact, I think you might be shocked. This comic has almost no action. It has almost no crazy reveals, and you only see Peter in the Spider-Man suit for a single panel. So how can a comic like that be blowing up the way this one is? Well, that's what this video is about. Let's break it down. Now, you don't need to know much about comics to enjoy this story, but there's a little bit of backstory that will help. Number one, you just need to know basic Spider-Man lore. You probably picked this up from movies, cartoons, or maybe other comics. Just the basic stuff will get you there. Number two, you need to know that this is a new universe in the Marvel multiverse, and that an evil version of Reed Richards known as the Maker stopped heroes in this universe from becoming heroes through time travel. This is all set up in the Ultimate Invasion comic book miniseries, which does set this comic and universe up. I highly recommend that series, but you honestly don't even really need to read it to enjoy Ultimate Spider-Man #1. All you need to know is that the Maker stopped Spider-Man from being bit by that spider about 20 years ago. Now, the story of the comic actually begins with Peter Parker waking up as a middle-aged man. Like, he does the whole "I'm not getting any younger" thing while looking at himself in the mirror. He gets dressed, puts his wedding ring on, and comes out to meet his family, who's enjoying breakfast. Because yes, in this story, when Peter never became Spider-Man, he eventually got married to MJ and had 2 kids. Now, Peter's wife and kids give him a bit of a hard time for waking up late and looking so tired. Peter explains that he didn't sleep the night before and that something was keeping him up all night. His daughter also snoops into his briefcase and uncovers this weird metal sphere, which Peter just says isn't a toy and takes back from her. Mary Jane asks Peter if he wants to talk about what kept him up all night, and Peter says yes, but that conversation will have to wait. This is a brilliant use of open loop psychology to create foreshadowing, and I was frankly shocked at how well this paid off later on in the book. So Peter then goes to the Daily Bugle, and this is the fun part of this comic. It's interesting to see what parts of his life are different because he was never bitten by the spider, and what parts of his life are the same. So it's cool that he works at the Daily Bugle, and it's cool that we see a lot of familiar faces here. Most notable, J. Jonah Jameson, but this is also when one of the first big twists and reveals happens in the comic. Uncle frickin' Ben is alive and is also a managing editor of the Daily Bugle. He's also really good friends with Jonah Jameson. And this is honestly great, but it also breaks one of the unwritten rules of Marvel Comics. Like, quick history lesson here. There used to be a saying that anyone in comics can come back except for Bucky and Uncle Ben. Now, of course, they break that rule by bringing Bucky back as the Winter Soldier, but they never did that with Uncle Ben. This is like an established part of the lore. Like, you can't bring Uncle Ben back. His death and Peter's feeling of being responsible for his death is a catalyst for him becoming Spider-Man. Heck, even Across the Spider-Verse and all those movies play around with Uncle Ben dying as a canon event. And because this is such an unwritten rule, it was really shocking to see Ben just there alive in the flesh. From there, we get a series of scenes that are incredibly wholesome. Jonah and Ben give Peter the whole older uncle treatment, literally saying kids these days to some of the stuff that Peter does, which is so funny because this is the oldest we've ever seen Peter Parker, and yet he's still kind of getting little broed here by J. Jonah Jameson and Uncle Ben. The two men are authority figures for Peter and staples in his life, and yet you can tell they actually really care about the kid. J. Jonah Jameson literally gives Peter his tie so that Peter can look more presentable at the memorial that they're going to, and then Ben and Peter head off to the memorial. Now, we find out through the next couple of pages that Aunt May died in the recent attack. Now, this was a crazy attack that was blamed on Tony Stark, and it is the memorial that Ben and Peter are going to go cover. It's for that attack. And these moments in the book are so sullen and serious, with Peter wanting to make sure that his uncle is okay, because of course his wife recently died. Uncle Ben tells Peter that he feels the same pain that Peter does about his parents. And the two of them silently bond in their grief. Together with a ton of other gathered city residents, they hear a speech by Father Matt Murdock and Harry Osborn, and it is revealed that Harry Osborn lost both of his parents in the attack. Seems like Matt Murdock isn't Daredevil in this universe either. He's just a Catholic priest, and he gave a pretty good speech. Harry's speech, however, was pretty dire, and he ends up basically saying, I don't see how any of us can be expected to actually move on from this. That's foreshadowing. Peter then has a nice moment with his family at the end of the memorial, but he ends up heading back to the Bugle for the rest of his workday. And there it is revealed that all hell has broken loose, as when we get to the Bugle, J. Jonah Jameson is quitting. He's literally walking out. Now it's explained that Wilson Fisk, who's either sole owner or partial owner of the Daily Bugle. Yeah, Fisk is making some editorial changes and basically asking the paper to change the way they cover things to toe the line. And Ben Parker promptly quits as well and joins his old friend. And then we see a couple of crazy pages when Wilson Fisk's car is blown up by a new Green Goblin. We then cut back to J. Jonah Jameson and Ben getting drunk at a bar and talking about their future. The two men decide to start an independent paper together and are even excited about the prospect and the new freedom that comes with quitting their job. Then Peter Parker shows up and he has this brilliant conversation with his uncle. Peter needs to know how Ben was able to let go of everything and so quickly make a decision that would change his life in such a major way. This is when the comic really kicks you in the face. Peter Parker finally opens up with what has been bothering him, and he explains that he loves his life, he loves his wife and his kids, but he feels like something has been missing from his life. And he also explains that he now knows he was right about that, and that there is something that's been missing from his life for a long time, but now he doesn't know what to do. Uncle Ben tells Peter that inaction is action, and that if Peter is walking around put to sleep by his own life, then he needs to wake up. Peter then comes home, he says goodnight to his children, and then he has the long-awaited conversation with Mary Jane about what had kept him up the night before. This is also the thing that he referred to when telling his uncle that he now had proof that there was something that had been missing from Peter Parker's life. Peter explains to Mary Jane that he needs to change. Mary Jane literally says, "Oh, that," and goes on to explain that she's known for years that a sort of cloud has been over Peter Parker. She tells him, "You put on a good face, but you're not satisfied with who you are." She asks Peter if whatever this change is will change their relationship, and Peter says never. She then tells him to go get him, Tiger, and I about fell out of my freaking chair. That is a freaking awesome line that Mary Jane had said to Peter way back in the day and had a lot of relevance and reverence. But Marvel Comics has done so much weird stuff over the past couple of years that I just feel like I haven't had a moment like that with Mary Jane being Mary Jane, rooting for Peter and saying go get him, Tiger. Chef's kiss, man. So Mary Jane goes to bed and leaves her husband to go figure this out, to go seek this change. Peter retrieves the weird metal sphere that his daughter had earlier on in the issue, and then he goes to the roof. But then we see a flashback to the night before, and we actually get to witness what kept Peter up. In the middle of working late in his living room, a crazy box appears, and he receives a wild message from one Tony Stark. Tony explains that this message is for Peter Parker, and that he is sending it from 6 months in the future. He tells Peter that 20 years ago, he was supposed to be bitten by a spider and become one of the greatest heroes in the universe. But that life was stolen from him. However, Tony has gone to great lengths to give him the chance to take it back. We cut back to the present Peter on top of the roof as the sphere is opened, and we see a vial containing the spider and a black orb that contains a suit. Peter, while remembering the words of encouragement from his uncle and his wife, decides that he does want it. He wants the chance to take back the life that was stolen from him. He lets the spider bite him, and he puts on the suit. Okay, so maybe you're still not sure why fans love this so much. Like maybe you're like, hey, that sounds pretty cool, but also like, why are the Spider-Man fans going absolutely fucking crazy on social media for this comic? Please allow me to explain it. I've been dying to get into this part. Peter Parker is probably the most beloved comic book character ever created. I mean, people like Batman a lot, but Batman is a psychopath, right? Like people don't love Bruce Wayne and Batman in the same way that they do Peter Parker. Peter's always been a likable guy with bad luck that juggles being a hero with being a regular dude. And for the past almost 18 years, Marvel Comics has tried a lot of gimmicky things to try to spice up Spider-Man comics. And this all really started in September of 2006 in the incredibly controversial story called One More Day. The TLDR on this story is that it saw Peter Parker make a deal with Mephisto to save Aunt May's life, but at the cost of his marriage with Mary Jane and his entire social life. This was like a massive retcon, which changed his personal life. It rebooted it completely. It made him no longer married to Mary Jane, and Spider-Man fans hated it. Now, they made Brand New Day, which kind of undid a lot of the damage that was done in One More Day, but still Peter wasn't married to Mary Jane, and still most Spider-Man fans were super upset with what Marvel had done with the character. And literally since then, there have been a bunch of crazy, gimmicky, twisty, turny things done with the character in his own comics that have left Marvel fans being like, yo, when are we just gonna get a good Spider-Man story? Like, let me explain. In 2013 to 2014, they create Superior Spider-Man, where Peter's own body is taken over by Doc Ock, and Peter's just gone for like 2+ years, and you have Doc Ock in Peter's body being Spider-Man. You then get Spider-Verse in 2014 to 2015. This is a big story all about all kinds of spider people from various dimensions. It included Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, and others, but it was like the Spider book for years. You then have Secret Wars in 2015 into 2016, which is really all about the multiverse. And then you had the Clone Conspiracy in 2016 to 2017, which showed the return of the Jackal from the 90s Clone Saga. You then had Spider-Geddon in 2018, which is basically another version of Spider-Verse. You have Hunted in 2019, which shows Kraven the Hunter targeting Spider-Man and other animal-themed characters. You had Sins Rising and Last Moraines in 2020, which was a story about Sin Eater and Harry Osborn revealing dark secrets about Peter Parker's past. And then most recently, you have Beyond in 2021 and 2022. And this whole story is about Peter Parker being severely injured and Ben Reilly taking over as Spider-Man. And I'll be honest with you, I enjoyed some of those stories. Like, I actually like Superior Spider-Man. I thought Spider-Verse was fun, but after a while, you realize, man, they're just doing a bunch of crazy gimmicky stuff to try to make Spider-Man fresh, to try to get new readers. And all the while, all the people that absolutely love Peter Parker and just want to read good Peter Parker Spider-Man stories, well, they've kind of been left out in the cold. And this book, Ultimate Spider-Man #1, is a return to Peter, and he's happy. The main idea here is that his life as Spider-Man was taken from him, and he feels this missing piece of him and wants it back. I mean, that's kind of meta to how a lot of Spider-Man fans feel about their favorite hero, Spider-Man, in comics. Like, something was stolen from them, something was taken from them, and they want it back. This book feels cathartic for Spider-Man fans, and I think it really proves that you don't need gimmicks, crazy twists, or wild headline-popping reveals to sell a Spider-Man book. This is just a well-thought-out Spider-Man story that adds a new twist on an old lemon, offering him up a bunch of freshness while also staying true to the character of Peter Parker. And we can also tell that Marvel is taking this very seriously. This is written by Jonathan Hickman. He is one of the greatest living writers and a treasure trove of creativity over at Marvel Comics. They've got him writing this thing. They've got Marco Cicchetto drawing this thing. He's one of the greatest working artists that they have access to. This is the flagship launch of a new Ultimates universe for Marvel Comics, and it also feels like a Spider-Man story that people have been waiting for like 20 years. There are, of course, a lot of questions and concerns of where the story is going to go now. A lot of people worried that maybe the new family is going to get hurt. Maybe Uncle Ben has to die for the canon event. We're not really sure, but for now, a lot of fans just loving this first issue of Spider-Man. I haven't seen a comic pop off like this in like a decade. For now, Marvel fans and Spider-Man fans are happy and loving freaking Spider-Man comics once again. It is a great time to be a Spider-Man fan. I highly recommend people go check out Ultimate Spider-Man #1. Add it to your pull list. Start reading it digitally. Do whatever you've got to do to support the comic so that we can tell Marvel Studios and show them with actual numbers that fans are willing to support and willing to buy these comics if they're actually stories that relate to the characters in the way that we love. I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.